And now, ladies and gentlemen,
Put your thumbs up and say it's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, Tickety Boo, everything's Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo, son. Tickety Boo.
Tickety Boo.
Hello and welcome back to Tickety Boo. Alright, be honest, how many times have you looked back at a time in your life and thought, God, I didn't even realise that I was actually happy back then? Isn't it weird? You're in a good bit, but you don't know it until you're out the other side, knackered, nostalgic and wondering where life went a bit sideways. In this episode, we are talking about why we only ever seem to focus on those good old days when actually those good old days could be really telling us about maybe something needs looked at in the present. So, guys, I was thinking about this the other day. You ever look back and realise you actually miss a time in life that you actually spent a lot of time moaning about or wasn't actually like that good?
I can.
Yeah.
And just the first one off the top of my head. We were at the airport the other week. Lou went away for a week. And I was watching all these other families with their kids. And my God, did it look stressful. Little ones going that way, little ones going that way. And they didn't really seem to have much time to enjoy.
You're not promoting parenthood.
Oh, no. It's probably not going to get any better but as I finish this off. But no, I look back at those times and I remember there was we'd have to take turns to relax while the other one was in the pool because the kids wouldn't stop. And then you did, and then all of a sudden there'd be a little poo floating past you in the pool that you had to try and explain to the lifeguard. And things like that. So there are times that were actually maybe there was sort of glimmers of sort of great stuff, but it was actually all a great time. It was all forging memories. Mm-hmm. At the time, I probably didn't enjoy them as much as I should. I was thinking about work. I was, because at the time I was sort of running around like a headless chicken. And
would you go back there to those times?
I'm quite happy where I am, to be honest. But
so that's a no.
But not still.
He's not taking the bait, is he?
I wish.
No, it's not.
I wish that I could go back and appreciate them more. Now I do look back with nostalgia, and I love thinking back to those times where I had two young children, a very drunk wife that was scared of flying, two massive suitcases, and trying to navigate my way around an airport. And I look back at it, and I wish I could go back and enjoy them. They were great times.
It's interesting because the nostalgia, I think, is actually delayed gratitude. We don't know at the moment what we're in, and when we can look at it, 2020, like hindsight, we can appreciate so much. But for me, as you know, I've been going through my dad's possessions, going through his farmhouse, and I probably spent the majority of my life angry at him. And I've talked before about my journey with forgiveness with him, and so I don't have regret. That was the teenager that I was, and the adult that I was too, quite frankly. But I've kind of got it from the other point of view, where I'm going through the memories and the photos and the paperwork. He had a lot of paperwork. It's like, I'm finding pockets of joy and so much gratitude for the upbringing I had, which in one of my books I wrote about is like, it looked lovely from the outside, but this is what was happening. Mm-hmm. However, now with none of that there and none of these people in my lives, my mum, my dad and my brother, I've actually got such gratitude for the unusual upbringing we had, for the joy of growing up in a farm, for the joy of being surrounded by Buddhist monks, for the joy. So it's the grief for me that I've been going through is the nostalgia, which is actually delayed gratitude. And I'm so grateful that I get to sit with that right now. Would I go back? Well, no, because I wouldn't be who I am otherwise. But it's interesting.
I quite like the delayed gratitude analogy, that actually in that moment, it's nice to be by the pool with the kids having a holiday despite the poo floating in the pool.
That was mine, by the way. The kids were dying of embarrassment.
Dad's done it again. But I know for me, when I reflect back, I spent half my life wanting to get out of school, and then the rest of your life wanting to go back to the simplicity, the friendships, the uniformity of it. But actually, it was horrible. Yeah. Well, not all of it, but a lot of it was horrible. And I think this nostalgia we can go into the gratitude of the moment, but we scrub out the bad bits, don't we? The bits
Yeah.
that were actually really stressy, and we focus on the highlight reels of those moments.
Yeah, well, we were just saying actually, one of mine is the entire 80s. And I listen to the music and I look back at the 80s with these rosy coloured glasses.
Yeah.
But the reality was we went without. A lot of getting by was a fight. And yeah, the times weren't that great. We were different racial attitudes as a mixed race family. There was a lot going on.
So
But
do you miss those times or who you were back then?
right, well, I appreciate them now.
Right.
Going without, I remember differently now, because the things that happened and the things I went without were character building, and that's the thing. So now I can appreciate the lessons that came with those times, because I can see people that have got everything, and then they've got no value for it. So I look back and I understand the lessons that came with them. I don't really have the feelings of maybe the stress or looking out from it. Stress was different then when I was a kid, but not looking out for yourself or some of the worries I may have had, they've sort of gone by the by. So I'm remembering back without the emotion, but I definitely look back, and the reason that nostalgia is making me look at it through a different set of eyes is because I now appreciate the lessons that came with that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is value for what just playing outside.
Well, I have
value for things I have.
I have a question for you both, because on reflecting back on my life, I've definitely, in those moments when life has been good, whether it's on reflection, whether it's personally, professionally, family, whatever decade we're looking at, I have found that I got busy. So when I was a teenager, I was busy going out doing my own thing. When I was a mum, I was just busy trying to cope. Well, I still am a mum, but with a toddler, you're just trying to get through it. So we can get busy being busy, and we're chasing the next thing. We're chasing, particularly when it comes to being in business and professionally, we don't appreciate actually that we've got everything that's good until we look back and go, oh yeah, the thing I was always chasing was that. Because then we're going on to the next. We keep moving the goalposts because we're trying to attain something else, so we don't realize that actually we're in the moment, that the moment now is good.
Well, I was going to actually go in the other direction. Does nostalgia actually hit us harder when life in the present is a bit disconnected and not good? Are we using it as a form of escapism?
Well, then obviously I think both perspectives are right.
Mm-hmm. I know that's what I do generally when I'm being nostalgic. I'm unconsciously trying to escape the moment because something's off, or I'm not particularly happy at the point that I'm not feeling particularly rooted in.
Well, I think that's
now.
true. As I've struggled a lot with depression in the past, and so when prior to being able to work through it and recognizing it, definitely before I was ever on antidepressants, which work for some people and others have other opinions, definitely with that and dealing with that, then I would ruminate and it would take me on a downward spiral. But now I can recognize when I'm in it, whether I'm falling to my knees or not. And I guess it's an upward spiral. I can be appreciative. So I think it depends on the mindset of the moment, and depends what version of me you're talking to over the decades.
I think we reflect on those moments almost as if we could go back there today, but with everything we know now.
Yes, I was about to say, sometimes nostalgia, we're processing things with today's head.
Yes.
We're looking at yesterday's memory from yesterday with today's head.
Which,
that's for sure.
Obviously it's superficial, we can't. But if we did go back to these moments with what we know now, the learnings would be taken away. Those moments, all moments good and bad through your life, they're all lessons, aren't they? There's all moments to learn from and reflect. We've talked about our childhood. At the time, we probably thought it was pretty good, all right, but now we look back with very different viewpoints on it because we're fundamentally different people, which kind of leads into the last episode we talked about, wasn't it? And the questions that you'd ask yourself. So maybe actually if you find yourself kind of reflecting too much about the past, it's actually because you really need to look at stuff in the now. Yes. Something's off in the now.
Yeah.
You're feeling a disconnect in the now. It's maybe because your external circumstances aren't reflecting what's going on inside with your well-being.
Yeah, maybe you're like, life was simpler back then, or I don't know, you were happier, or I mean, you look back weirdly when I kind of reflect on childhood. Part of me kind of goes, it was simpler back then. You just had to worry about, was Ian in when I knocked his door, so I had someone to hang about with. And the sun was shining and we were knocking around on the streets, and life, you know, we didn't have mortgages and bills and taxes to do. But we had a totally different set of social issues and anxieties fitting in and being accepted and not being bullied and are we loved enough and all that kind of stuff. So we had different kinds of worries, but they were still there.
Yeah, without a doubt.
You know, it's about taking those rose-tinted spectacles off, isn't it, and looking at the situation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's those moments when you look back at your holiday photo that was amazing. You're like, oh, you know, to go back to that moment and just capture the essence of it. But I think when you keep escaping to your past and you're not really rooted in the now, that is a bit of an issue, isn't it?
That's an issue, but that's an issue. I remember the past quite often in two different lights. One is those times when you look back and you go, oh, do you know when you just have those sudden moments of, oh, why did I do that? Don't ask me why they spring up into the back of your mind. And there's a few things, but I'll mostly relationship-wise, people-wise, I wish I could do different, not say. Mm-hmm. But I also look back at the one school sports day where I won everything, or when the kids are born. There's different moments, or that one moment on a holiday, or I've got so many memories that I go back to, and I use them. They kind of anchor a good feeling. I use them almost as an anchor.
Yeah.
That school sports day one, I use that all the time still.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So being able, those nice times and those fun memories are actually a resource that we've all got, but not everybody thinks to use them.
Yeah.
Because it's something that it's that little bit of joy, that little bit of confidence, depending on what it is that we keep in the bank, that we can actually bring up the same as those miserable memories, all those things that make us cringe.
Yeah, like that's a great example of, you know, being anchored in a moment where you felt empowered, you felt good, you were achieving, and, you know, but I think what the reality is, a lot of time when we go back and look at the good old days, they feel like the good old days as we're kind of doing this helicopter view back of them. But in reality, when we were back there, they weren't the good old days.
No, I agree. But we carry it same as every memory. Every set of memories. We carry snapshots of the good bits.
Yeah.
Or the lessons we learn, or the bits that have emotions that we still can clearly attach to them.
Yeah.
So are they useful? Not all of them, but I just...
I think we can be proactive now because, as we've been reflecting, a lot of it is based around our mindset at the time, whether we're reflecting back or not, and whether it was good or not so good memories. So I think it's working with the mindset. With me now being aware, when I was depressive, it was very different. If we'd been discussing this topic like decades ago, is in the moment now, like when we start noticing ourselves ruminating and being nostalgic, bringing ourselves back to this present moment and noticing what's good now, even if it's the tiniest thing. And just, I've talked about it before, but I'm instead of going to say, look for 3 moments of gratitude for that day, look for what is good. So that we can start to train our brain to look for the good, because our brain's going to try and find a focus on what we're ruminating about or focused on. And so it's starting to train that muscle, because as we've discussed before, it takes, for every negative, it takes 3 to 5 positive encounters. And it's so much better if we can start, and so much easier if we can just start to train that now and get our good feeling bank going, or our positivity bank going. And it's not about being fake, but really looking for what's been good that day. Like, I had a good night's sleep last night. So do you know what? Tick. That's good. Could it be gratitude or good? Depends how they want to look at it. But I think to give our listeners that perspective, is there something that they can do now, as opposed to, would we, wouldn't we?
Here's a question for you. Sorry to throw you both under a bus, but I'm going to. Can you think of a time in your life that you can reflect back to now, that now you can really see a lesson in it, but at the time you couldn't?
Say that again? You can see
So a moment back in your life that now the point where you're at today, you could see the lesson in it now, but back then you couldn't.
Oh, God, a million times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do you think is your biggest lesson when you self-reflect back?
If I go back to my most extreme, which was when I had suicidal ideation and attempts, so in my teenage years, in the moment, it was a cry for help. Whereas now I know, like, I know that was a cry for help. So if I could go back and help myself, it would be like talk to somebody, start sharing instead of internalizing. So the knowledge I have now, I can see that that was a hard time, and I'm not glorifying it, but I absolutely understand how difficult and how alone I felt, even though I wasn't necessarily. But, you know, my home environment wasn't necessarily positive in a couple of years. And it would be to go and give myself that advice, or for any of our listeners, like, reach out, because, yeah, I was miserable. I was unhappy.
Don't carry it
Don't carry
all
it.
by yourself.
Yeah.
Or don't feel like you have to carry it all by yourself. What about you, Ian? You can think a moment.
I mean, a lot of mine are. Sorry, I don't want to go too personal with things, but a lot of mine are. I wish when people were reacting in a certain way, I didn't just react. I listened, because actually their behaviour was a symptom of something that was going on that I didn't pay attention to. I just reacted to the face level behaviour that they were making without thinking.
So I jump into judgment almost.
Yeah.
Right.
Sort of, yeah, absolutely. I mean, feeling that who the hell am I to be prejudging people based on face level stuff without actually taking the time to deep listen and understand. So one of the biggest regrets I ever had was all the years that I had in conversations where I spent waiting to respond rather than actually listening. Now, that's one thing where I could grab myself by the head, honestly, because not only would it have, thrust me forward hugely, but more importantly, it would have allowed me to support the people that covertly needed that support in the first place. I mean, that was kind of off the back of what you were saying there, really. I went down that one. And a slightly more light-hearted one was when I was doing my apprenticeship. Something that I was absolutely fuming about was a mutual, very, very good friend of ours. I was doing an apprenticeship for the guy that was his scout leader, and our friend was our scout leader. And they've been talking, that Ian, he just don't listen. He's absolutely useless. I don't know, can't believe he keeps turning up. And one night our friend we were going to canoeing on a Tuesday night, and he just says, what you need to do is stop, listen to what you're being told, digest it for a second, and then respond. Then do what you're being. I was just absolutely fuming that they discussed the fact that I was useless behind my back outside of a working, but it was actually the best bit of advice I ever had. So that's one area where I think I could have changed.
And how about you?
Well, funny enough, Ian's just unconsciously segued right into where I wanted to go, which is probably the thing is your first reaction is probably the wrong reaction.
Yes.
These automatic unconscious reactions that we immediately do, very rarely are they right. And actually, it's putting that comma, that pause, that full stop in, think, and then respond. Give yourself space. I think we're kind of conditioned, like somebody says something, we need to immediately respond. One of the best things that someone taught me once was when somebody asks you a question, pause, ask yourself the question again in your head in your own voice, and your answer will be different.
Yeah, agreed.
Agreed.
And the other part of that is another area that I've been a shock at is when people talk, I instantly try and find a solution, try and find a way
Fix
to
it.
Sometimes all people need is just to be listened to and some empathy. They don't need you to jump in with your 10 pence. They don't need you to come in because you're a fixer. That's almost selfish because you're doing it to make yourself feel better. Sometimes just a little bit of empathy, an ear, and just listening is enough.
Yeah.
So that's So
Yeah, I think what we've got to really do, sort of a takeaway for this episode will be that life's not always profound, but actually focus. You were talking about this, Iona, that, I focus on the way that Barney reacted to me when I took him out on his walk this morning, the way that we laughed in the car on the way in about stuff and we talked about stuff. The 80s song that came in when I was driving into the airport to pick you up, the good stuff, notice it before we miss it in the moment. And that saves us diving back in the past, looking for those glancing moments, the stuff happening right now that deserves your attention, even if it's not that exciting.
I love that. It's a bumper sticker. Notice it before you miss it.
Yeah, notice it before you miss it. We get T-shirts with that on, couldn't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, just reduce the distractions.
Yeah.
Enjoy it now. But we're all distracted. All the time. It could be work stress, could be... And at some point, we're going to be looking back at today, thinking, I remember when I was doing those podcasts with Andy and Iona. I was awesome. The other two held me back, but... No, but yeah, maybe not. But no, but we'll be remembering this at some point. And if I'm sat here stressing about, what's going on in the bank or what's going on at home, we're missing out on the moment.
Yeah, there is lessons in these moments, and it just kind of goes back into what we say, which is allow yourself to be truly present in what you're doing in the moment and enjoy every ounce of whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's hanging out with friends or having that walk, especially when you're with people that you love and you want to spend time with. Never take that time for granted, because one day will be the last time that you see that person, but you may not know that.
Yeah.
And conversations will be unleft. Experiences and regret will be there. And I think, it's like if life was a lemon, squeeze every ounce of juice out of that moment you can and savour it. Forget all the stuff next week, the week after, just be in the moment.
Yeah.
Being present. I think that's the kind of takeaway, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely. And again, that's my secret to success. Just be in the moment, do well today, and then the better stuff tomorrow will come.
Nice little chat, that.
Yeah.
So that brings an end to this episode of Tickety Boo. As always, thanks very much for watching and listening. Please click that subscribe, follow and bell icon if you're watching on YouTube to get notified as we release new content. And we look forward to catching up with you in the next episode.
If you or someone close to you needs to access mental health support, please contact your GP, or if it's out with normal office hours, get in touch with NHS 24 on 111. Alternatively, contact the Samaritans on 116 123. All calls are free of charge from any phone. You can also find more support information on the Tickety Boo website, ticketyboopodcast.co.uk.